What if the most important thing that you could do for your success isn't working harder, it's actually sleeping better? I recently just watched a TED Talk given by Matthew Walker entitled Sleep is Your Superpower. Now, Matthew Walker is a sleep scientist and author of the book Why We Sleep. And in his TED Talk, he talks about the importance of sleep relating to brain health, memory, mental health, longevity, and productivity. And one of the standout facts that I took away from the talk is how much sleep has an impact on our health and, frankly, our rate of death and mortality. And one of the best examples is daylight savings. We run an annual, twice a year, experiment on sleep called daylight savings. Now, in the spring, when we lose 1 hour of sleep, we see a 24% increase in heart attacks the following day. Conversely, in the fall, when we gain an hour of sleep, we see a 21% decrease in heart attacks. And me personally, when I heard that fact, it's a pretty rude awakening into the fragility of sleep and how important and necessary it is to our body functioning properly. And the biggest takeaway that I had is that sleep affects everything. It doesn't just affect the health of our physical body, it also affects the health of our mental state, of our brain. And Walker further explains this, talking about sleep's role in things like learning, memory consolidation, retention, emotional regulation, and physical repair. And so when it comes to things like memory, he mentioned a study in where there were two groups. There's a control group that got a full 8 hours of sleep and another group that did not get a full 8 hours of sleep. In other words, they were sleep deprived. And they specifically tested them as when it comes to how sleep relates to memory retention and learning. And what they found was when an individual gets a healthy amount of sleep, i.e. 8 hours, there's a part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is in charge of essentially storing memory files. So if you want to think about memory and learning throughout the day as incoming files, and when you sleep is the process of your brain taking those files and storing them in a secure hard drive, essentially, a secure location. Individuals who got a full 8 hours and healthy quantity and quality of sleep saw that the hippocampus was extremely active and efficient in its operations of storing data, whereas individuals who did not get good sleep, i.e. the quality wasn't there nor the quantity, it wasn't just that the hippocampus was lacking in its ability, it was non-existent. It was completely shut off. And so effectively, the incoming files were being bounced. And so there was no memory retention, no learning happening, which is another study that goes to show how important sleep is not only to our physical when it comes to cardiovascular things, but also our brain and how our brain needs sleep in order to function. And my next point is that Walker talks about how it's not just the quantity in terms of, the number of hours you get per night, trying to get to the 8 hours. It's also about the quality of sleep, which comes down to things like your sleeping environment, the timing of your sleep, your sleeping patterns, night to night routine. Things like that also play a big part in, how well you are sleeping. And so you could be getting the 8 hours, but if you're not sleeping in the right environment, it's not as good as it could be. And so I want to talk about two things that you can do to help improve your quality of sleep on top of getting your full 8 hours. Now, the first thing that you could do is it comes to regularity, sleeping schedule. And so regardless if it is a weekday or a weekend, aim to go to bed and wake up at the same time. And so what does that look like for me? Well, during the week, I think it's easiest to base it off your weekly schedule, because most of us who have 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 jobs, full-time jobs, right? We clock in, clock out at the same times. And so our weekdays are pretty set in stone in terms of our sleeping schedule. And so for me, I wake up at 6:45 a.m. every single day during the week, and I try to go to bed around 10:30. So that's me in bed. And so if that's what I'm doing during the weekdays, then that should be a priority to maintain that kind of similar schedule on the weekends. And if you do that, that'll help. That's the first way to help improve the quality of your sleep, is your body will recognize that it falls into a natural circadian rhythm. And so when it gets closer to your natural bedtime, your body will want to fall asleep and will more quickly and naturally fall into that sleep. And same thing for waking up. If you have a hard time waking up early in the morning, once it becomes habit, it becomes easier to do so. Your body kind of just has an internal biological clock for going to sleep and waking up. So that's the first thing that you can do. Second thing relates to the temperature that your sleep environment is in. So for most of us, our bedroom temperature. When your body goes to sleep, your core temperature needs to drop from anywhere from 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit below your natural waking hour body temperature, right? And that's to fall asleep and to stay asleep. And so due to that, the optimal temperature for most of us to set our bedrooms at, according to Walker, is 65 degrees. And when I first heard that number, I was like, wow, that is low. Like, geez, that sounds freezing. But at the same time, it's like, when you think about it, anytime I'm in a cold room, it feels really good to go to sleep, right? Like it's not like the worst environment you could be in is in a hot room. You know, you want to bundle up, but it's hot, and so you start sweating. It's just not a good time. But when it's cold, but you know, there's no better feeling than going to sleep when you're all bundled up under the covers and the comforter. And so that just goes to show, it's like that is our natural biological wiring, is that our bodies are made to go to sleep at a colder temperature. And so that's what we should do. You know, we're not sleeping outside anymore. Now we're sleeping in a climate controlled environment, but we still need to, you know, adjust our climate controlled environment, our AC in the house, to what our bodies are kind of made for and what our bodies are wired for. And so that's something that we do in our house. When it comes to night, we have it kind of a auto set to where the temperature will drop, the AC will kick in as the evening comes upon us. And so I think we have our house set around 68 or 69, so not as low as Walker's saying, but I'd be curious to try it out. I know I definitely do that during hotels because those ACs crank, so I love to turn those down. But those are the two things: having a consistent, regular schedule and dropping the temperature of your bedroom. And so last thing I want to talk about is kind of my 5 personal sleep hacks. So kind of on top of what Walker has talked about in his TED Talk, I kind of want to briefly discuss some of my 5 personal sleep hacks for kind of what I do to help me sleep. The first thing, again, we talked about is it's just the fixed bedtime and waking time. So trying to go to bed at a consistent time, especially for me, for someone who is a night owl, who I love to get majority of my work at night. I love staying up. I find it easier. It's weird because I switched. When I was younger, I was always, you know, early bird, you know, gets the worm, right? I loved being the first one awake in my household. But now, with school and with work, I find a lot of my best deep work sessions to be late at night. And so I've developed a habit, maybe a bad habit, depending on who you ask, of being a night owl and staying up super late. I'm still getting the work done, right? It's just now, you know, shift my clock later. And so I'm trying to, as I'm getting accustomed to a new job post-college, it's definitely like a routine I'm starting to change up now, to where I'm no longer staying up till like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and waking up at like 9 a.m., 10 a.m. Now we're just shifting the schedule back. Still the same amount of waking hours, shooting for 8 hours of sleep, 16 hours awake, being productive, but just turn the clock over to where I'm going to bed 10:30, waking up at 6:45, 7, right? So I'm still getting those full 8 hours, but it's more consistent, right? And so my second thing is blue light. Trying to eliminate blue light as I get closer to bedtime. I talked about this in one of my earlier videos, but one of my favorite hacks that I do every single night, I've enabled it on my phone, is you can turn on a red shift on your screen. If you want to find out how to do that, you can go into that video where I kind of walk you through the settings on how to turn that on. But essentially the whole point is that blue light is kind of a natural light that is to help awaken our senses and kind of just get us primed and ready for the day. That's something natural with the sky, being blue. That's where blue light comes from, right? But now that we live in an age where we have devices that we look at screens constantly for hours a day, that kind of has just disrupted our biological wiring a bit to where now we're staring at blue light. Our eyes are being exposed to this blue light like all day, every day, 24/7. Like anytime we're awake, where chances are we are looking at a screen that is emitting blue light. And so I don't know if it's like really made a difference, but I feel like people say it does, and so I feel it's not hurt my sleep, and so it's just become a habit now where I just do the triple click on my phone and it turns red, and that's just kind of what I've been doing. It looks cool, but if that's something you want to try out, go find that video and I'll show you how to do that. Third thing is having a routine before you go to bed. So similar to having like a normal bedtime, also having a bedtime routine. And one of those things that consists for me is also not just the blue light thing, but also eating habits. Not eating a big meal right before I go to bed. Not trying to stimulate my digestive system or any other system in my body. Trying to prime my body that it's wind down time. And I think the last thing you want to do is just feed your body a whole bunch of stuff, especially crap food and junk food that's just not going to get used during the night and just going to get stored away as fat. I think that's the last thing you want to do, is to stimulate yourself like that. And so that's another cutoff I set for myself is to stop eating around 7, so anywhere from 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. That's another tip I have. And then the last thing is just to track your sleep. I know I said 5, but I'm gonna get 4 because a little repetitive. Is to kind of just track your sleep and just see how you feel. Just write down and journal how you feel night to night. As I've implemented some of these hacks, I definitely feel a noticeable increase in just the quality of my sleep. I think a good indicator is that if you're someone who struggles to get through the night without waking up, this is something to pay attention to and to try to put some attention towards. There's no reason to go through life and not being able to make it through a single night, sleeping wise. If you aren't able to do that, then that's a pretty good indication that there's something wrong with your sleep. Either just the quantity, the quality, something is up that is causing that, and it's not natural, and I don't want you to think that is something that you just have to live with. So try some of these hacks, implement that, see if it helps. If it doesn't, go talk to someone, go talk to more of an expert, right? Do some research, but don't just sit there and suffer, because again, as I pointed out earlier in this video, the risks are there, the health risks are there. Sleep is such an important part of our lives. We spend 1/3 of our lives doing it, and so why not make it quality? Why not at least make 33% of our life high quality, right? And so that's all I have for you guys on this one. Again, just pick one sleep habit to improve and just let me know in the comments, if you decide to implement that, and just let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear from you guys. And with that, that's all I had. If you enjoyed or found any value from this video, feel free to stick around on this channel where I post new videos every week on Tuesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And with that, I will see you guys on the next one. Godspeed.